Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jandaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jandaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jandaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jandaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Giri Govardhan ki, Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. So today we will read from Sri Caitanya caritamrta. We're going to read from the Adi Lila. Sri Caitanya caritamrta is divided into three parts: the Adi Lila, the Madhya Lila, and the Antya Lila. So three parts: the early pastimes of the Lord, the middle pastimes of the Lord, and the final pastimes of the Lord. And the Lord we're referring to is Lord Caitanya in this case. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we'll just chant one invocation mantra for reading Sri Caitanya Charitamrita. If you know it, you can repeat after me. Hare Krishna. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So I just want to check who's controlling this display. Oh, you're controlling it. Good. So we're supposed to speak from text 36 of the first chapter of Adi Lila. However, I wanted to go back to text 34 because this part we're reading is based, actually this whole first chapter is based on this text 34. And text 34 is also the text 1. It's an identical verse. Text 1, which means the first verse of Caitanya Charitamrita, and text 34 identical. So Krishna's Kaviraj, Goswami, this whole chapter is describing text 1, which is also text 34, right? And text 34 gives 6 parts of the absolute truth, 6 aspects of the absolute truth, text 34. And in text 36, where we're reading from, to text 44, he describes those 6 parts. So I just wanted to start with text 34. Are you able to go to text 34, Matthew? So we'll just quickly read that text because that's like the seed text for this whole chapter. And then we'll come back to this. We'll also look at text 35 and then we can come back to this text. So this is Sanskrit, so we can maybe say this together. The other verses, I'll just say it myself. So I'll just repeat, I'll say the verse myself first, and then we can repeat responsively. Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktan Isham Isha Vaktarakan Tat Prakasham Chatach Chakti Krishna Chaitanya Samgnakam. You can repeat after me. Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktan Isham Ishavatakaran Tat Prakashams Tachach Chakti Krishna Chaitanya Samgyanakam. So the translation of this verse is, you go to the bottom, the translation, sorry. No, just, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the spiritual masters, the devotees of the Lord's incarnations, his plenary portions, his energies, and the primeval Lord himself, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So here, there's a long purport, but this is the first verse of Adi Lila also. I won't talk to the purport, I'll just give you a quick summary of what the 6 parts are here. You'll see in this verse, state on the translation, leave it on the translation. You can see the 6 parts mentioned here of the absolute truth. So the 6 parts are the spiritual masters. You see the spiritual masters? He's offering respectful obedience to the spiritual masters, the devotees of the Lord's incarnations, his plenary portions, his energies, and the primeval Lord himself. Those are the 6 aspects of the absolute. So, very important verse because it's giving us a very clear indication of the spiritual realm and spirituality. It's showing us the 6 parts of the absolute. These are all considered the absolute truth, part of the absolute. And therefore, he's offering his respects to all these aspects. When we think of the Lord, we think of Krishna, or the Supreme Lord. But here we see there's 5 other aspects added here. Besides Krishna, there's 5 other aspects. And here he starts off CC by offering his respects. And then in the rest of this first chapter, he explains these 6 aspects. And today, we're going to talk about these same 6 aspects in summary. And then in the rest of the chapter of this Adi Lila, he explains it in more detail. So we won't go into too much detail, but we'll just go through these parts in summary. So these 6 things, let's see if we can remember them. What's the first one? spiritual master. I got my text, so I won't get it wrong. See how much you remember. Oh, you all also got the text. Next is what? The devotees of the Lord. Very easy to remember. The spiritual master, who's also a devotee, but he's a special category of devotee. Then the devotees of the Lord. Then the Lord's incarnations. And then his plenary portions. The Lord's incarnations and plenary portions. Two types of incarnations, you could say. The plenary portions, the complete him himself and his incarnations. And then the next one is his energies and the Lord himself. So three sets of two. The spiritual master and the devotees. That's the devotee part, right? Then you've got the incarnations and the plenary portions. And then you got his energies and the Lord himself. The energies is talking about the internal energies, specifically the energies. There's also the external energies. But here, because we're talking about the spiritual side, we're talking about the internal energies of the Lord. So three pairs. The energies of the Lord and the Lord, the devotees and the spiritual master, and the incarnations and plenary portions. So those six aspects is what this whole chapter is about. So if you're coming to the next classes, Krishna's Kaviraj will be explaining all six of these in a good amount of detail. And it's very important for us to know also. So I think what we'll do here, before we start reading on, I'll just offer my prayers to my spiritual masters, and then we can continue. Om Gyana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Caitanya Manobhistang Stapitang Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So these six aspects are critical for our spiritual lives. And some of the important points we have to remember about the six aspects, they are all equal and identical manifestations of Krishna. So we mustn't think that Krishna is the only manifestation of Krishna. These six aspects, spiritual masters, the devotees, the incarnations, the plenary portions, the energies, and the Lord himself, all six are equal, identical manifestations of the Lord. Right? So it should broaden our perspective of who the Lord is and what is spiritual life. All six of these make up spiritual life and the spiritual realm. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport to this verse, we won't go to the purport, it's a long purport, that they're all equal and identical manifestations. So basically, any one of the other five is an equal manifestation of Krishna. And all identical manifestations of Krishna. Can you see something that we have to realign? Because we don't think of the devotees as equal manifestations of Krishna, do we? We don't. But here it's being said, the devotees the spiritual master, all equal, identical manifestations. Such a profound verse. And this is right at the beginning of Caitanya Charitamrita. Caitanya Charitamrita is a postgraduate study of Krishna consciousness. Postgraduate study. So it's assuming we already, practicing and we have an understanding of the philosophy. And right at the beginning of this postgraduate study, it's setting the playing field of who is Krishna. It's not that this is Mayavad, that the devotee is the same as Krishna. No, we know the devotee is a servant of Krishna, a spiritual master is a servant of Krishna, but all equal, identical manifestations of Krishna. Key point. So that's why I wanted to start with this verse. And the dealings may be different. The devotee is a spiritual master, the incarnations, etc., their dealings will be different, but still equal and identical manifestations of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada also says in this purport that they all equally worshipable. Imagine that. Right? Amazing, right? You don't think of it like this, but this is what. They all equal manifestations and they all equally worshipable. So if you think that Krishna is worshipable, it means these other five are worship the same way that we worship Krishna, at that same level. And Prabhupada mentions there that it excludes the external energy. And in the verse prior to the verse that we're reading, the next verse, sorry, can you go to the next verse? Yeah, 35. So Krishna's Kaviraj is going very systematically. And because we do one verse at a time, we may not realize the system he's following. So in the beginning, he describes these six aspects, this part here. And then he starts in text 35. Just go to the translation. He offers his respectful obeisances at the lotus feet of his initiating spiritual master and all his instructing spiritual masters. This is also important because what is he doing? That first aspect we said was the spiritual master on the six. And here he's showing that it's your initiating and your instructing spiritual masters. He's making it clearer, right? So he gets into it now. And Prabhupada is explaining in this purport that without the association of devotees, we got no chance of pure devotional service. Specifically, these spiritual master devotees. Now they're talking about the spiritual master, because this verse is talking about it. We have no chance of devotional service. And you can't get taste for devotional service without the devotees. That's what Prabhupada is saying in this context of spiritual masters. So, and there's no room. If you try to understand Krishna consciousness by logic and argument, you'll be unsuccessful. The way to understand Krishna is through the devotees, spiritual masters specifically. And Prabhupada makes another thing is that we must listen submissively to the spiritual master. Very important points I thought he made this verse. And if we don't accept a spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada says, we are sure to be baffled. So if we don't accept a spiritual master, we'll be baffled in our spiritual life. It's an essential ingredient. Nectar of devotion, we learn also. Accepting a spiritual master is a critical thing. Without that, we can't make progress. Srila Prabhupada also says, if you don't get a chance to serve the spiritual master directly, you follow his instructions. The instructions are identical with serving the spiritual master. So now we can go to text 36. Oh, you've got it. Okay. Text 36. So I'll just say the Bengali. This is Bengali, yes. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's Sanskrit verses quoted and there's Bengali. The text is mainly in Bengali, but there's many Sanskrit verses, especially when it's quoting from Bhagavatam or other scriptures. Those verses are in Sanskrit, but they are scattered. Text 36. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhata Dasa Raghunath. Translation. My instructing spiritual masters are Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Bhata Raghunath, Shri Jiva Goswami, Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. So, Krishna's Kaviraj, who's the author of Caitanya Charitamrita, is telling us who his instructing spiritual masters are, who his Shiksha Gurus are. And he names them here. And these, of course, we know them as the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. On the altar, you see that picture. These same 6 Goswamis are the instructing spiritual masters. Text 37. Text 37 says, H.I. Guru, Shiksha Guru Ye Amara, Tan Sabara Pada, Padme Koti Namaskara. The translation, these 6 are my instructing spiritual masters, and therefore I offer millions of respectful obeisances unto their lotus feet. So he's in the form of offering his respectful obeisances. Firstly, Krishnadas Kaviraj is teaching us how to do anything. To do anything, we approach these 6 parts of the absolute truth, beginning with our spiritual masters, the devotees, the Lord's incarnations, his plenary portions, his energies, and the Lord himself. And now he's offering his obeisances to them. So that's how we approach, we do anything. He's writing this amazing literature on the pastimes of the Lord. So he is offering his respectful obeisances. First, you can see he's offering it to who? To his instructing spiritual masters, his Shiksha Gurus. And the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, by accepting the 6 Goswamis as his instructing spiritual masters, the author specifically makes it clear that one should not be recognized as a Gaudiya Vaishnav if he is not obedient to them. So, in spiritual life, we all come in different lines of different lineages of spiritual understanding. And there are many lines of spiritual understanding. There are the 4 sampradayas, the main sampradayas, Brahma, Rudra, Lakshmi, and Kumara Sampradaya. Those are the 4 main sampradayas, bona fide sampradayas. And we are coming in the Brahma Sampradaya. And within the Brahma Sampradaya, there's the Madhavacharya is the line we are following. And within Madhavacharya's line, we are following Lord Caitanya. And Lord Chaitanya's line is called the Gaudiya line. So, in order to be a Gaudiya Vaishnava, Prabhupada is saying, we must follow these 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu gave his instruction to these 6 Goswamis, and we must follow them. And that's how we can identify ourselves as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, if we are following these persons. So in spiritual life, our only duty is to follow. Because what are we doing in material life? In a material life, we are figuring out things ourselves, right? Or we're hearing from different places and we're trying to apply it and we're battling along. In spiritual life, you follow, you submit, you hear and you follow and you submit to that teaching. So now we are hearing that in order to be a Gaudiya Vaishnava, which is the line we are following, we have to submit to these 6 Goswamis, the teachings of these 6 Goswamis. Text number 38. Bhagavanera bhakta yata shrivasa pradana tansabara pada padme sahasra pranama. The translation of this verse is, there are innumerable devotees of the Lord, of whom Srivas Thakur is the foremost. I offer my respectful obeisances thousands of times unto their lotus feet. Right? So, he's offered his obeisances to the spiritual masters. Now he's offering his obeisances to the devotees, the second one. Right? You know, we had those 6. He's offering his obeisances to the devotees. And the chief of the devotees is Srivas Thakur. Now, if you remember the Pancha Tattva, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar Pandit, and Srivas Thakur. Shri Shri Radharadhanath Ki Jai. So, these 6 manifestations are very prominent in the leader or the head of those manifestations are in the Pancha Tattva. So we have here the innumerable devotees of the Lord, of who Srivas Thakur is now the chief. So we see Srivas Thakur, and then of course he offers his obeisances to Srivas Thakur. So he offered his obeisances to spiritual master and then to all the devotees. Text 39. Advaita Acharya Prabhu Ramsa Avatara Tanra Pada Padme Koti Pranati Amara. Translation. Advaita Acharya is the Lord's partial incarnation. I therefore offer my obeisances millions of times at his lotus feet. Right? This is now which of the 6 that we did. The incarnations of the Lord. Remember? The spiritual master, the devotees, then the incarnations of the Lord. So here is offerings obeisances to Advaita Acharya, who's the Lord's partial incarnation. You see how he's going systematically through that 6. Text number 40. Nityananda Raya Prabhura Swarupa Prakasha Tanra Pada Padma Vando Yanra Munidasa. The translation. Srila Nityananda Ram is the plenary manifestation of the Lord, and I have been initiated by him. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. So he's offering his obeisance to Lord Nityananda, who's the 4th aspect, the plenary portion of the Lord, plenary manifestation of the Lord. The complete manifestation of the Lord is Lord Nityananda. So we had Srivas Thakur as the devotee, the main devotee, and we have Advaita Acharya as the incarnation, and we have Lord Nityananda as the plenary portion, plenary manifestation of the Lord. So those 3 aspects we've seen how they are in the Panchatattva. And then the next verse, text 41. Gadadhar Panditadi Prabhu Ranija Shakti Tanra Sabara Charane Mora Sahasra Pranati. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the internal potencies of the Lord, of whom Sri Gadadhar Prabhu is the foremost. Right? So, this is the 5th aspect. Gadadhar Pandit is the manifestation of the internal potency of the Lord. Here you can see the word internal potencies. Initially he just said potencies of the Lord, but specifically now he's saying internal potencies, because the external potency is the Maya Shakti. Text number 42. Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Swayam Bhagavan Tanhara Padara Vinde Ananta Pranama. Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the personality of Godhead himself, and therefore I offer innumerable prostrations at his lotus feet. This is the 6th aspect. The Supreme Lord is Lord Chaitanya, right? So Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Lord. Lord Nityananda is a plenary manifestation. Advaita Acharya is the incarnation. Gadadhar Pandit is the internal potency. And Srivas Thakur is the devotee. And you have the spiritual master, Siksha and Diksha Guru. That's the 6 parts of the Supreme Lord. Right? So now, we can understand from this why our Panchatattva is such a complete representation of the absolute truth. You see our Panchatattva in the age of Kali, how fortunate we are. Panchatattva, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Complete manifestation of Supreme. And it's shown here. It's showing very clearly. There's the 6 aspects, the spiritual master, Siksha and Diksha Gurus, and then the Panchatattva is everything in spiritual life. Now you see how Prabhupada gave us everything? He gave us a spiritual master, he gave us the teachings, gave us spiritual masters, and then he gives us the Panchatattva. See how we got everything. So it's much more than just having your Guru and the Lord. All 6 aspects are there, and we have it in Krishna consciousness. So, text 43. Savarane Prabhure Kariya Namaskara Echai Tenho Yaiche Kariye Vichara. Having offered obeisances unto the Lord and all his associates, I shall now try to explain the 6 diversities in one. So for the rest of this chapter, Krishna's Kaviraj is going to explain these 6 diversities. He just offered his obeisances now. We got a little clearer understanding of who these 6 diversities are of the Lord, and now he's going to explain it for the rest of this chapter. We'll just touch on the first part in the next verse. The purport. There are many unalloyed devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all of whom are considered associates surrounding the Lord. Krishna should be worshipped with his devotees. The diverse principles are therefore the eternal paraphernalia through which the absolute truth can be approached. So, very important point. Some people say that we should only worship Krishna. Prabhupada is saying, Krishna is worshipped with his devotees. Krishna is never worshipped alone. Therefore, we have Krishna is always with his devotees, even in the pictures, in the altar. Krishna is with his devotees, and he's worshipped with his devotees. The same principle can be applied to Srila Prabhupada. Many people say we should only worship Prabhupada and accept Prabhupada. We shouldn't accept anyone else. You hear that? Same principle. We can see how broad the spiritual understanding is. The Lord, the Incarnation, the Shiksha and Diksha Gurus who are many. How are you going to have Shiksha and Diksha Gurus if you only have Prabhupada? Multiple. It's Shiksha and Diksha Gurus. If Prabhupada is Shiksha, who's your Diksha? Or if Prabhupada is your Diksha, where's your Shikshas? Shiksha can be the Diksha, but many spiritual masters and the devotees are worshipable, equally like the Guru. The Lord, his plenary portion, his plenary manifestation, I keep saying portion, plenary manifestation and his incarnations and his energies, all worshipable, equal representations of the Supreme Lord. Powerful understanding, right? Right at the beginning of Caitanya Charitamrita, he sets the scene so clearly, and he's going to explain everything in this first chapter. Text 44. Yadyapi amara guru chaitanyera dasa tatapi janiyami tanhara prakasha. Translation. Although I know that my spiritual master is a servitor of Sri Caitanya, I know him as a plenary manifestation of the Lord. Another powerful verse. Although I know my spiritual master is a servitor of Sri Caitanya, I know him as a plenary manifestation of the Lord. So we're saying he's a servitor, and we're saying he's the Lord, the spiritual master. And Prabhupada will try and explain it to us here in the purport. It's a very important purport. Every living entity is essentially a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the spiritual master is also his servant. So there's the first argument. Why the spiritual master is a servant? Firstly, every living entity is a servant. So the spiritual master who's a living entity is also the servant. Right? We understand that. Spiritual master is a servant because every living entity is a servant, and the spiritual master is a living entity. Still, the spiritual master is a direct manifestation of the Lord. So this is what's unique about the spiritual master. We say every living entity is a servitor. All of us, every conditioned living entity is also a servitor of the Lord. They don't know it, but they're also servants of the Lord. But the spiritual master is a direct manifestation of the Lord, equal and direct and worshipable, as we heard already. He is that. With this conviction, a disciple can advance in Krishna consciousness. So in order to advance in Krishna consciousness, we have to have the conviction that our spiritual master is a direct manifestation of the Lord. It is not Mayavad philosophy that the spiritual master is the Lord and they are one, but he's a direct manifestation of the Lord who's equally worshipable, equally a representation of the Lord. And by having this conviction, we advance in spiritual life. How many of us have that conviction? Interesting, right? The spiritual master is none different from Krishna because he is a manifestation of Krishna. And we heard the 6 manifestations of Krishna. Spiritual master is included there. So spiritual master is none different from Krishna because he's one of those manifestations of Krishna. Prabhupada carries on that Lord Nityananda, who is Balaram himself, the first direct manifestation or expansion of Krishna, is the original spiritual master. He helps Lord Krishna in his pastimes, and he's a servant of the Lord. So Lord Nityananda, who is directly mentioned as a plenary manifestation of the Lord, is also the first spiritual master because he helps the Lord in his pastimes and he's a servant. Very important. Spiritual master helps the Lord in his pastimes and is a servant of the Lord. Lord Nityananda is filling that role also. Every living entity is eternally a servant of Sri Krishna Caitanya. Therefore, the spiritual master cannot be other than a servant of the Lord, of Lord Chaitanya. The spiritual master's eternal occupation is to expand the service of the Lord by training disciples in a service attitude. So what's the spiritual master doing? He's training us in the proper way to serve the Lord, in the proper service attitude. And he is expanding the service of the Lord. So that's how he's participating in the Lord's pastimes. He's expanding the service of the Lord. That's how he's serving the Lord. That's what the spiritual master is doing. And that's why he's a representative of the Lord. A spiritual master never poses as the Supreme Lord himself. He is considered a representative of the Lord. So he's not the Lord, but he's a representative of the Lord. But he's an equal, worshipable manifestation of the Lord. The revealed scriptures prohibit one once pretending to be God, but a bona fide spiritual master is a most faithful and confidential servant of the Lord, and therefore deserves as much respect as Krishna. Right? As much respect as Krishna. This is what we need to offer the spiritual master. So the spiritual master is an equal, identical, fully manifest representative of the Lord, who's a servant of the Lord, and he expands the Lord's service by training us in our proper service attitude. It's important, Prabhupada says service attitude here. Service attitude. Service has an attitude associated with it. It's not just we work hard. We work, we use our body in service, but it's done with devotion. It has a certain attitude, a certain mentality. Like we all have had experience of good attitudes and bad attitudes. When someone does something with a bad attitude, you don't feel good about it. Yeah, take it. You want it, take it. That's a bad attitude, right? You're not going to say, oh, thank you so much. No, you don't feel that. Take it. That's not a good attitude. The proper attitude when someone is offering you something, it's a different experience for both the person who's offering and the person who receives. So service, as Spiritual Master is training us in this proper service attitude, devotional service, the proper attitude. And that's how he's participating in the Lord's pastimes. That's how he's expanding the Lord's service. By him training us in devotional service, the Lord's service is expanding. We are all getting to do devotional service. The Lord's pastimes are increasing. The service of the Lord is increasing. And the Spiritual Master is doing that. Therefore, the Spiritual Master is so important. He's such a worshipable person. Okay, so we can stop there for any questions. Such important points Krishnadas Kaviraj is explaining to us right at the beginning of Caitanya Charitamrita. And for the rest of this chapter, he goes into these things in more detail and, dissects them even more and gives us a clearer understanding. Are there any questions or comments on what we've done and discussed so far today? Anything? Yes? Maybe, okay, you think I'll be able to hear? Okay, I can hear you. Sorry, I didn't hear the last part, the last sentence. Godhead. Oh, okay. Yeah, important question. I have an understanding. I'm not sure if it's the proper understanding. Okay, I have heard it, but a long time ago, so my memory may have failed me. But Godhead, yeah, why not Supreme Personality of God? In other words, the question is why Prabhupada says Supreme Personality of Godhead and back to Godhead. And why not Supreme Personality of God? So what's the head there for? Does anyone know? And back to Godhead, like the Back to Godhead magazine. Why not back to God? So Godhead, my understanding, and I hope I'm remembering and presenting it correctly, is that the Supreme Personality, it actually ties very much to what we're talking about. The Lord is not just on his own. He's with this whole spiritual realm of these other 5 aspects, the devotees and all these things we talked about. So it is a spiritual reality that we are going back to, of which the Lord is the fountainhead. God is the fountainhead, but it's Godhead in that it's, what's the word I can think of? We have this in English, but I'm not thinking of a good word in English. The sprouts manifest from him, but like there's head. Head is used in English words to show the nature of something. Let's see. Oh, I should use ChatGPT or something to find a word, but I'm thinking of a word. It's not the right thing. This is Afrikaans. So, apartheid is apartness. You know, apartheid, we're from South Africa, right? What was apartheid? It's apartness, right? Apartheid. So that's where that apartheid, H-E-I-D, is an Afrikaans equivalent. It's apartness. So what's the English word for that? Is head. Ness, like spiritualness. So going back to godness, or to the spiritual realm. So Godhead means God and everything associated. So it's not that we're only going back to Krishna, we're going back to all 6 of these things, the devotees, the spiritual masters, everything. So that is Godhead. So it's much more than God. That's why it's a Godhead. It's everything. So it's a whole spiritual dimension, the whole spiritual realm that we're going back to. So therefore, when you say Godhead, we're referring to all 6 of these things. Everything. Well, here is putting it nicely as 6, but we will just say everything spiritual, but Krishna's Kaviraj is breaking it down into these 6 aspects, make Godhead. So this is Godhead. This is Godhead, these 6 aspects. It's nice that you asked it now. If you asked me some other time when we didn't discuss this, I would be struggling to explain it, what it was. But yeah, I hope that satisfies you, but that's my understanding of it from what I heard a long time ago. I just wish I could think there are English words that have the word head on it, that as a suffix, which explain it. Like, I can only think of apartheid at the moment, the Afrikaans. Yeah, but thank you for that question. Any other questions, comments, anything, corrections? Anyone wants to add? Okay, so we'll end there. Thank you very much for your attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.